pretty much unregulated. Competition between global operators such as Alibaba in China and Google and Microsoft on the other side in the US. So the question is then, how will these technologies be shaped? How can CforRI actually ever address this thing?
I'm going to refer to a particular chapter in your book. So in chapter 8, which is called Is Innovation Always Good for You? By Luc Fluiter. Is that right? Fluiter?
Luc Fluiter is the author of the article, yes.
Yeah. Luc said, responsible innovation should best start with companies and innovators, but these characters are often not aware of the long-term impact of their innovations. And he gave example, the financial innovation of credit swaps that triggered the 2008 financial crisis. So my question here is there anything we can learn from, for example, the financial crisis from a policy perspective in preventing a similar crisis in AI, biotech, even social media, which are innovations, of course, that are much closer and much more intimate to humans, which means that they're more risky?
Well, that's I'm not sure if I can answer this question satisfactorily in terms of the parallel to the financial crisis to which Luc Fluiter referred to. Insofar there is a comparison, you can say that financial markets were pretty much unregulated. And prior to the economic crisis, there were already demands by some governments even to have a better regulation of these global financial markets. And this was never achieved because there was a strong resistance against that. And even post-crisis, particular changes in the banking sector, for example, has happened globally, also in Europe very strongly with regulations. There has been ongoing discussion on particular taxing on financial transactions and so on. So it has led to some changes, and this is not untypical when it comes to Europe or to actually the global situation. We only start to change things when we hit a disaster, so we had a financial disaster, so it came to a sudden response. And now with COVID, although we know already open science is a good thing to do before COVID, but now it helps. So again, you have this situation. But what we did not do yet, and this is of course then the parallel probably, is that on a global level, when it comes, for instance, for AI, as you has now mentioned, as probably the new technology which now has received a lot of focus, that precisely this technology might be driven completely by, let's say, the competition between global operators such as Alibaba in China and Google and Microsoft on the other side in the US. So you will have an intense competition between big companies, very few big companies, who invest enormously in these technologies. I believe they invest to 1 billion a year in AI. This is much more than governments can give follow-up to. So the question is then, how will these technologies be shaped? What form will they take? How can CforRI actually ever address this thing? So yeah, and then I just have to repeat myself a little bit. I mean, the public governments again will become enormously important, and the European Commission does also fund AI, and they want to even fund what they call then good AI. So AI was this centered to let's say enhance human autonomy or has all kinds of nice ethical objectives. But the question is if the technology itself are designed as a consequence of this huge competition, whether we can achieve our goal here. So this is a normal challenge, and so the parallel with the financial crisis is only that of what type of regulation you want to take in place, and what type of governance you want to take in place, and certainly the financial crisis was the consequences of a lack of governance. And under the Trump regime, so to speak, the international governance even went further backwards. So international governance, global cooperation are things which are prerequisites for RRI in a global perspective. And but the last decade we have engaged in dismantling global governance. Even institutions like the WHO, which are now important in the context of COVID, have suffered of lack of global governance instead of getting the support needed. So this is the biggest challenge, I think. And one can get pessimistic there, but maybe at one point there will also be a new wave of politicians which reflect the urgency of these things. And
do you think that realistically is another disaster?
Well, I mean,
not,
one maybe cannot imagine yet what will be the disaster of AI in the future. I on the short term, I only see maybe the application of AI in relatively pointless areas. Maybe an AI which automatically likes say Facebook pages in your name or something like that. So which are the type of innovations we normally get. On the other hand, of course, you have very problematic applications of AI in which the intransparency of the algorithms used lead to decision making which is catastrophic. So we have the example already from the US where companies have developed algorithms to help to decide whether prisoners can go on early release or not. But the algorithms are privatized, and you don't know on what basis these decisions are made. So that again is of course an issue of public governance. One either should not privatize these things or not, or if they are privatized, then the algorithms should be transparent. These are also, of course, challenges on I think on the immediately short term. Responsible innovation as a paradigm requires a shift from, let's say, on one hand, we have still the traditional key tech orientation, be it biotech, AI, or nano, in the hope that this will bring us the economic benefits, or in which we engage also on the basis of competition between blocks, where there is an intense competition to try to be the best in this area. But this contradicts with RRI as an new innovation paradigm, where you want to achieve social desirable goals, and where the governance is actually where the assessment and of your success is different. So in the competition model, you look, of course, to a competitive advantage as a sort of governance success, where in RRI you look to achieving social desirability as a success. And the latter requires more than only technological innovation.